Welcome to another season of Hoda's Career Info, the program where career professionals from across the globe meet to empower you to succeed. This program is brought to you by Right Career Fit. Listen and learn, and remember to have that very important career conversation with a career professional.
I have to know what labor market information is. To make it the most simplest, it's information that you need to learn more about the world of work. That tomorrow's careers are going to be different. There's going to be a lot of change. Change is scary, but we can meet all of those challenges. I think if you find something that you really, really like to do, it's not work. It's something you like doing. Career development is a journey for sure. And sometimes we don't necessarily get what we want in our career, but some of us really love the journey.
Thank you for joining me in Hoda's Career Info, your career program where guests from across the globe share career tips and personal stories to help you successfully navigate your career. I am Hoda, your host. I look forward to another season of career chats with international professionals who will inspire you to take your journey to the next level. My guest today on Hoda's Career Info is Senior Policy Analyst Tracey Campbell. Tracy has been a career development practitioner for over 25 years. She spent the first 15 years delivering career and employment services directly to youth and unemployed adults in Alberta, specializing in clients with multiple employment challenges. Tracy has worked in both direct services and public policy development. She currently works for the Government of Alberta as a Senior Policy Analyst, specializing in career development and labor market research. Tracy is a proud member of several career development associations, including Asia Pacific Career Development Association, National Career Development Association, and the Career Development Association of Alberta, always promoting the certification of career development professionals and championing career development for Canadians and citizens around the world. Today, Tracy is leading a campaign to create a United Nations Day of Career and Livelihood. We'll hear her talk about it in our chat. Thank you for joining me and Tracey Campbell. Together, let's learn from Tracy's experience as she talks about labor market information, forecasting, and so much more.
Thank you, Tracey Campbell, for joining me today. I'm very excited to have this conversation. You have so much knowledge, and I can't wait to have you share it with me and the audience. As usual, I start by asking my guest to choose a term that defines their career so far, or perhaps their job today, and define it from their own perspective. So not the one that I would go and Google or look up in a dictionary, but something that reflects your own perspective on it.
Okay. Well, I've done a lot of reflecting in the last probably 6 weeks because I'm going to be changing a little bit about my job in the next 3 or 4 days. I'm moving to a new position. So for me, what's really important is a term that I learned when I first became a career counselor in probably maybe 1997, 1998. The term is mattering. And mattering for me means making meaning within a relationship. So as a career practitioner or professional, we make meaning for a lot of people when it comes to job search or work search. We make meaning for career planning. And in particular, we want to make meaning in building a relationship with whomever we're working with, whether it's an individual, a family, or a group, an employer. We have to make that meaning. Does that make sense, Dr. Hoda?
Absolutely. And mattering hasn't been used before. So thank you for choosing that and for adding to our career development keywords. My next question to you, Tracy, is about your story. You can feel free to share as much as you like of it, and embed with it a message to the audience who are probably job seekers or even career practitioners.
So I would say, like a lot of my fellow career practitioners and a lot of people viewing this episode, I had to start somewhere. So I actually started with a university start. So I did go right after high school into university. I studied a Bachelor of Arts with the hopes of becoming a lawyer. But towards the end, I, strangely enough, became a justice of the peace. And I found out through becoming a justice of the peace that, hey, I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to advocate for people. I want to counsel and coach people. So that's where I started to look for jobs or roles in which I could counsel or guide people with career and employment issues. From there, I did a lot of work in the private sector, developing and delivering workshops on everything from self-employment to career planning to, we had a workshop early on hope. And that was my favorite one because we got to talk about how we build hope for ourselves as individuals, families, as groups. From there, I became a Government of Alberta employee, and I've been there for about almost 23 years. I started as what we call a career consultant, where we help people with income support, training, and employment. And then from there, in 2011, I became what we call a policy analyst. And in particular, right now, I'm what they call a senior policy analyst. And all that means is that there's a difference between starting senior policy analyst or a policy analyst and somebody that's more senior. It just means that I've gained the experience to do more of the role, if that makes sense for the audience. And I know that you would have in my bio talked a little bit about both of those things. And right now, as a policy analyst, maybe for the audience, I can explain that it's not all about numbers. It is about looking at information and figuring out how you're going to use that information to build a case for something, an argument for something. And as a government policy person, we often get direction from our political elected folks. So I would be told, obviously, in which direction we're going. I would have to do the research using my research skills, my analytical skills, listening skills, because sometimes as a policy analyst, we have to interview people. A lot of times we review reports, we review articles. Sometimes it's as simple as talking to our peers. So I'm talking to people in my ministry and other ministries to figure out all of the different perspectives available in order to come up with a couple of different, what we call policy options, different ways of solving the problem for, in our case, Albertans. Now, if you were working in the private sector, you'd be solving that problem for maybe a health care or maybe a senior society, because I'll give you an example. Many of the people that tune into this program belong to the Alberta Career Development Association. So as a member of the association, for about 6 years, I was assisting the association with developing policies around things like if one of our contracted people was taking a maternity leave, what does it look like? If we're doing marketing and promotion, what's the policy for that? What's the policy for advertising? So I guess what I'm hoping the audience will see is that while quite often an analyst requires some formal education, it doesn't always require that. It depends on the subject matter that you will be setting policy for. Does that make sense, Dr. Hoda?
Thanks, Tracy. Yes, it definitely does. And I liked how you showed us that in your story, you started out as a lawyer and then you changed, because I always say, when you choose a path, you're not necessarily stuck into it. You can always find different ways to explore until you find the right fit for you. And it seems to me you seem happy where you are today anyway, because we always say constantly reflect. And thank you for explaining also the senior policy analyst role. I do get a lot of questions on what does it really mean. I do have one more question about that. Is your journey typical? Like once you have to go through the university and get a certain type of education in order to become a policy analyst and eventually a senior policy analyst?
I would say to be competitive for a Government of Alberta policy analyst position, quite often you do require basically a bachelor's degree, so 4 years of university on average. However, I have met people that have come in with a high school diploma plus, say, 10 years of experience on the job in the private sector. So it does vary. If you're looking, I think my best advice to folks, if you're looking at becoming an analyst with the Government of Alberta or anywhere else, please do information interviews. I think Dr. Hoda has talked about this a couple of times throughout her episodes. Information interviews, I really think, are the best way. So call somebody whether it's Government of Alberta or it could be, say, Alberta Health Services, you want to work there, call them and find out what it is that they're looking for, because you might have that specialized knowledge and you might have more than enough education to get the job.
This is sound advice and I appreciate it, Tracy. My next question to you is about a term that career practitioners, as well as many other professionals, use. It's LMI, also known as labor market information. And I got a lot of questions usually from my young clients is that, why do I need to worry about LMI? So maybe we'll start, what is LMI from your perspective?
Yeah. So technically, I specialize in labor market information. As my part of, because I basically right now have to provide advice, strategic advice around the labor market. I have to know what labor market information is. To make it the most simplest, it's information that you need to learn more about the world of work. So it might be you're looking at what kind of wages do certain jobs or roles have. It might be looking at how many people work in that industry or in that field. It might be how many employers employ people. And I guess for people that are wondering, well, where would I find this? My parents are older and they talk about newspapers and things like that. Well, yeah, you used to get most of this information in newspapers, but now you can get a lot of it online. You can search Google, or better yet, I would recommend that if you're serious about looking at labor market information, you look at Statistics Canada, and they break it down into some nice, simple 2-page reports. There's an organization called the Future Skills Center, has a lot of very short, really good briefs. And by brief, I mean 3 to 4 pages that talk about it. And then here in Alberta, if you're living in Alberta, I would encourage you to look at the ALICE website, and they actually do call it labor market information. And then there's another one, the Alberta Treasury and Finance Board provides you with very specific stats. So if you're looking for stats on women's programs, or maybe you're a youth and you're looking at, well, how many youth are pursuing engineering currently? We would be able to tell you that through that particular website. And then my ministry has one that has a dashboard. And by a dashboard, I mean it gives you graphics that put the information in a very picture-like view. I hope that helps our viewers. If not, Dr. Hoda can reach out and I'd be happy to provide her with different links to labor market information so that you can get that information very quickly.
I appreciate the organizations you shared, and I think that could get anyone started on understanding the basics of LMI. Another question I typically get from young people, so why is it important for me to know all that information? Why do I need to know how many engineers are signed up?
I do think it's important if you're looking at finding the first job and you're the kind of person that maybe values, say, job security. You want to know what the future looks like in that job. And that's what labor market information does. It tells you what the current situation is, as well as it tries to provide predictors, so characteristics that will help you determine whether that job is going to be more available or there'll be less people doing the job. And why I use it with the people that I mentor is I want you, not only if you're looking for a job, it may be even career changing. Or for me, for example, I'm looking at self-employment after I retire already, and I'm at least probably 10 years away from that. But I want to know a decade from now, what might be the trends coming up? And quite often labor market information tells us that. When we start to look at the world of work, many research centers do what we call forecasting. And if you're looking for something very simple and easy, try Horizons Canada. They provide you with all kinds of very good information, solid, predictable information on a yearly basis. It's always updated.
Can you give us an example of someone you worked with or even your personal experience where you're like, wow, I'm glad I knew that because I knew that LMI, I was able to do this?
Right. So a good example was my daughter, when she was looking at doing some career planning 2 years ago in high school, she did the comm class, but really felt it was very boring. She didn't like it. So I said, okay, so I see you've got 3 occupations you're looking at. Have you ever wondered within the STEM, which basically is your science, technologies, engineering, and math, have you ever wondered which ones have a better opportunity when it comes to finding a job right out of university? And she smiled and said, well, yeah, I want a job right away and I want to make good money. So to make a long story short, she did a lot of research around those science careers. She also looked at education, like becoming a teacher, both secondary as well as elementary. And then she looked at nursing careers. And to my surprise, she taught me a lesson. She pulled all this labor market information about nursing 2 years ago. And I learned that a lot of today's nurses work across all industries. All industries look for nurses. And I didn't know that. And I'd been a career practitioner for 25 years. So for me, I think it's very important for your well-being that you make sure that you take a look at what's out there and compare it to your interests, your values, all the things that Dr. Hoda has talked about. You want to make sure that whatever you're looking at doing, the labor market information supports that, unless you want to be unemployed. And I don't think there's anybody that's watching this episode that wants to be unemployed.
Thank you for highlighting the importance of LMI. We both agree it's very important, but there's always, until you really, read the report or two, you don't really see the value. We have come to my final question for you, Tracy. As you know, as career practitioners, we always encourage our clients to get out of their comfort zone, take on new challenges. We know you want to retire in 10 years with your own business.
Yeah.
But anything else more coming up soon?
I think I should be honest with everybody. In addition to working with the government, I do mentor people on the side. I still like to keep my career practitioner skills and knowledge up to date. So I do a lot of professional development. I'm very proud to be a member of the Career Development Association of Alberta. I'm also a member of the Asia Pacific Career Development Association and the National Career Development Association. Why? Because I thought I could give back to the international community. So I try to seek out people that might want guidance from a Canadian perspective. And one of the things we're doing as an international group is we're trying to create a United Nations Career and Livelihood Day. So while we still, in Canada, we still celebrate Canada Career Month in, I think, November every year. We're trying to get a special day designated. And why the livelihood? Probably some people are saying like, oh, we understand career. Why do we do? Because half the world doesn't recognize the word career. They recognize it as their livelihood. And if we really want to be impactful, we want a day that's going to recognize how people value looking at themselves and their work. And the best way maybe to do that is to say career and livelihood. And I know from one of the practitioners that I talk to, often from Pakistan, a lot of it is simply hope. And I really think that it's time that we provide more hope for our world, give people the choices they need. And I'm very optimistic that tomorrow's careers are going to be different. There's going to be a lot of change. Change is scary, but we can meet all of those challenges. And I think, Dr. Hoda, you'd agree that change looks different for everyone, and how you basically meet those challenges is up to you as an individual. It's up to you as an organization. For me, it's always been taking a deep breath and finding ways to make the negatives more positive.
And that attitude is so important. I find with clients, if they come to me with a negative attitude, I'm like, we got to move you to that positive outlook on life before we can actually talk about a career or even getting a job. So such an important message. And I hope you get that happening this year. And the idea of livelihood, of course, is important. Even for us here in Canada, we want a career, but we also want to make money to live comfortably.
And I think we should remind everybody, Dr. Hoda, that sometimes your career starts with a volunteer opportunity. I've worked with many artists. They were the most fantastic artists I've ever met, but they were doing it on the side. And then I'd find out six months later, wow, they had a gig going on at a mall. They were selling whatever they had, but they had also started down another trajectory. And I guess what I want to also say is that, there are a lot of choices we can make. And I know a lot of your viewers have heard about gig work and have heard about platforms. And those are some ways that we can actually get into the labor market, make some money while following our passion. And I know that's a dirty word right now in career development. We don't often say follow your passion, follow your skills, follow your knowledge, follow your interests, use your experience. But for the most part, I think if you find something that you really, really like to do, it's not work. It's something you like doing.
And like you said, that is something every one of us can try on the side before jumping in fully. And the platforms are out there like Upwork and so on to support that for sure. Yes. You did add a piece of advice at the end. And to wrap up, I usually ask, is there anything you would like to add? So feel free to add more if you have.
I don't think I have anything more to add. I want to thank you very much for hosting me today. And keep up the good work. I think you're making such a difference in our world. We do have to talk about career literacy, what the terms mean. We need to talk about each and everyone's different when it comes to journeys. And I think what I have learned over my 25 years is, career development is a journey for sure. And sometimes we don't necessarily get what we want in our career, but some of us really love the journey. We get so much more out of the journey as opposed to, say, the destination being the job or the role.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for your pieces of advice. I appreciate having you here on this program.
You've been listening to Hoda's Career Info, the program where career professionals from across the globe join me to empower you to succeed. Thank you for joining me and my guest today on Hoda's Career Info, Tracey Campbell. Tracy shared her story along with valuable career advice for job seekers. Have you ever taken the time to check out labor market information? If yes, please share your experience. Also, don't forget to share your feedback in the comments section. You can connect with Tracey Campbell on LinkedIn. Please remember that you can listen to Hoda's Career Info since it's also dropped as a podcast. To let me know if you are interested in an opportunity to talk about your work, you can send me a direct message on my website, rightcareerfit.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter to stay up to date on the latest episodes. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and follow me on social media for more career info. I am your host, Hoda, and until next time, stay inspired and keep moving forward in constructive ways.